All those activities are performed by the Teradata Corporation, and for them the system DBS will support, and the system DBS will work with the application DBS in order to send the bulletins to all application users prior to at most 3 to 4 days, so that they won't log on to the machines during the upgrade process. And on the upgradation day and time, we have to disable all the logons to log into the machine so that it won't interrupt the upgrade processes. So how we can control the users from logging on to the machines on the day? Okay. So as a application DBA, you should have control on the all user IDs to control them whether they can log in to the machine at that particular moment or not. So how you are going to obtain that controls? So to obtain those controls as a DBA, you have to have access on a macro called DBC.AccLogRule. Okay. So by default, sysdba would has that. How he would have? The super user, the DBC, which is configured at the time of Teradata configuration, the DBC provides the execute access on this macro to the sysdba. Okay. The grant execute on DBC.AccLogRule to sysdba. So this statement is executed by the DBC once it is configured. The Teradata machine first time configured at your client place, this is the command which is executed. Okay, along with all role macros, profile macros. Okay, we have some set of macros which are to be executed after the configuration, then only you can say the configuration is completed. Okay, so this is also one of the configuration part where the DBC grant execute access on DBC.AccLogRule macro to the sysdba. Okay, and then sysdba in turn grants this option to all the application DBAs individually. Okay, if you have 100 applications, the sysdba would be one, but sysdba controls all the application DBAs. So the sysdba would grant access to each individual application DBA to control their own application related logons. Okay. And see, execution of this grant logon and revoke logon statements causes rows to be presented in a DBC dictionary table called DBC.AccLogRule table. Okay, so this is the macro which allows to control the users, and by using this access, whenever you control a corresponding user ID from the logons, the corresponding rule will be placed in the DBC.AccLogRule table. But we generally don't access this rule table to see the data. What we access? The view defined on this table called DBC.AccLogRules v. And this is the v version of the v, the view, which we access and see what is the current status of this particular logon. Can he log on now or not? So all those rules defined on each user ID is inserted in the dictionary tables, and you can access the data through the view LogRule view. So once you revoke any logon to log on from the machine at that moment, then if they try to log on, they will get a error message. Okay, not authenticated and not sufficient information to log on. Okay, we can customize those messages also, but generally we don't do. It is enough if we revoke them by giving a bulletin or by giving pre-intimation. Okay, 1 week before. Okay, we'll say next week the patches will be installed and please don't log on. And the day of installation or patch upgradations, we do this revoke operation. Okay, so it is mandatory you inform all the users prior to 1 week. Otherwise, it would be an escalation on the application DBAs that they are not aware and they planned their activities on that day. Okay, so even though it is a weekend, it is better in the application DBA perspective. You have to inform all your users that the system will be upgraded, so you should not log on, and you have to plan your activities accordingly. and then on the implementation day we do the revoke logons, so that whenever you execute this revoke logon on the local machine to a particular user ID or all, then whenever they try to enter, they will get the information. The user's right to log on has been revoked. Okay. So let us do a simple exercise. Any questions, anyone? Okay. So I have started my Teradata server engine, and okay, I have logged in as TD admin. Okay, so these are the statements which you will be getting. So what we are trying to do now?
Manor,
Yeah.
I have a question. So most of the time we are working on the views rather than working on the table itself.
Yes.
That is good.
Yes. Tables are to store the information by the Teradata internally for the DBC actually. Okay, and as a user we always prefer the views, because views are the integrated data of multiple tables, maybe with the joins and some formattings, okay, which is in the readable format, so that you can understand the data very well. If you see the database, it is very much raw data like table IDs, database IDs, row IDs, where you cannot understand the IDs, which is understandable by the Teradata's RDBMS. So always we work with views where they have the translation of the table IDs, database IDs into the names, and you can understand and read what object it is actually.
Okay.
So now I'm trying to revoke logon access on the demo version 01 is the local server to the user TD user, which is the default user in the Teradata demo version of 13, right? So I'm trying to revoke his logon. See the statement revoke completed, one row processed. Okay, so now I'll open one more SQL assistant, and through the SQL assistant I will try to log in as the TD user. So connect button, machine data source. So this is the DSN which I have created for the user TD user, right? For you it is TD user. Okay, I have DV and Terra which I have created myself on the TD user logon. Let me try that. See, the user ID password or account invalid. If you log in through BTQ also, you would get similar. How do we log on? Log on local TD user. The user ID password or account is invalid. And how you can see the status? By seeing in the view. Select star from DBC.logon rules v. Is this the view name? Check. Logon rules v. Okay. So if I check this, it holds all the user IDs and what is their current status. See, these are the user IDs, and this is the logon status. They are granted or revoked. So for TD user it is revoked, and for all other users can log on because the logon status is granted. As the status is R now, with TD user I am not able to log on. Okay. Now after the upgradation I am granting him the logon access again. Grant logon on 01 TD user. Grant completed. So let me log on now. This TD user, this DB Terra coming. So whenever you are logging in, the parsing engine will see the logon rules table if he has granted with access or not. And if it is with the G status, then only it will allow you to log on. See here, log on local TD user. Log on successful. And how you can see the status? It should be toggled to G. Okay. So this is how we can control the users from logging onto the machine at a particular moment once you provided access on the logon rules macros. And the sysdba would provide you the access to control the user IDs. Okay.
What is the meaning of 01 in this?
01 is the machine, the host name, the local machine. Okay.
So this is same for everybody? 01
Yep.
or we
Yep.
have
It's 01. You can also try with 01. The demo version, and in the local machine it is 01. Okay. And we have one more view called log on off view. With this you can see the logon status. I mean, whenever they try to log on, what type of logon happened? Is it a bad logon, failed logon, or it is a forced off? All those items we can see for a particular user ID if you'd like to see. So this is the view, and these are the columns where it will log all this information: log date, time, username, account name, event, what type of event it is, bad user or bad password, or a invalid account with which you are trying in. So logical host ID, session numbers, logon date, logon time, logon source. All these details are logged, and generally we use this particular query, okay, which converts the date in our required format, time, and the event in the logon of. And this is the sample result. So for to see logon off. It has 8,000 rows which has captured. So I'm sampling to 1,000. See, whenever I logged on, logons fails. All this information you can track. So whenever a particular user tried to log on but it has failed, you can get that information here. And there are several other status also, but general events are log on and log on. These events are captured. And another level of security is you can manage at macros level and views level. The view stored procedures, all of those stored procedures and the PLSQL objects, you can use those, and macros, as these are the extended objects of Teradata and you cannot see in any other RDBMS. I just had it one snap here to give you how macros can be used in order not to give access on the actual objects, we can use macros to do a predefined set of operations. So here, what this macro does, this macro takes the parameters, the employee number, the employee manager, department, joining date, last name, first name, hire date, birth date, salary. You have to pass these parameters for this macro. Okay, we know the macro, right? What is macro and how we create macro, how we execute macro. We have seen in the macros topic, macro session. So here it is an advanced use of the macro with some more options. So after we pass the parameters, this is the definition of the macro. What it does, it will check if the employee is minimum of 21 years old or not. If he is not, then it will roll back with an invalid hire message. You can use that rollback option within the macro to roll back and to come out of the transaction. We know in macro, whatever statements you embed, all those statements will be executed as a single transaction. If you execute, all the information or all the SQLs will be executed, or if not even a single statement will be executed. That is the feature of macro. And one more feature of macro is the access is not required on the actual object once the user gets the execute permission on this macro, because macro in turns executes it. For the user who executed this macro, he no need to have any access on the actual tables or databases. So here, what is the database? Insert into employee table. So on this employee table, the users who had execute access on this macro no need to have any write access, the insert access, update access. He no need to have anything. He just has to have the exec permission on this new employee. Right? So here, when we started using this macro, what we do, we pass all the parameters like this: exec, new employee, all the parameters which are to be inserted into the employee table. Okay, we are not giving any insert access to the user. Okay, what we did, we have defined the macro and given him the exec permission, and when he start executing this macro by passing the parameters, the first validation rule applied here: is he 21 years old or not? Otherwise it would roll back with a message invalid hire, and the next validation will start. If the department is not in the defined departments in the department table, then roll back with invalid department. And if department is also success, then the job description, the job code will also be verified. If the job code which we assign to this user or employee is existing job code in the job code master table or not. If exists, then it's success. Now it will try to insert the statement, insert the employee record into the employee table. Otherwise you would have any of these invalid message displayed and rolled back. This is how you can control the access on employee table by not giving any write accesses on the object to the users. We define the validation rules and the actions what the user can perform. Yeah, this is one level of security what we can maintain through macros. Okay. And we are moving towards the other topic, access logging and the query logging. So these are two different topics: access logging and then query logging. Query logging is also called as DBQL, database query logging, and this access logging. So what it does, So these mechanisms are to track the access logging. It means whenever the user logs in and whenever what the messages he got and he able to log on or not. And if you want to track his actions, for a particular user, okay, you are not familiar or you have some question about the accesses this particular user has and you want to track what he is trying to do. Okay, so as a DBA, as an application DBA, you are responsible for securing